Pokémon and Fire Emblem are both series that pride themselves on the fact that no matter which one of the 1,000 of creatures or war criminals you think of, they are someone's favorite. From popular choices like Pikachu and Edelgard, to more obscure picks like Grapploct and Robert, there is a goober for everyone under the sun. I've wanted to make a video combining the two series for a while, and then it finally hit me. What if I assigned a Pokemon to every Fire Emblem Lord? What if I could think of a Pokemon that perfectly embodies who that Lord is as a person? So today, I'm going to be doing exactly that. Looking through Fire Emblem's history and Pokemon's history and trying to find the perfect synergies for everyone. And before we get into it, I know asking for subs before a video even starts is kinda dumb. So instead, I'm not asking, I'm threatening. Subscribe to my channel or else I will hack into your Pokemon Home account and replace all of your Pokemon with level 3 Sentrets.
There is no meme. This is just a threat.
The ground rules are simple. I'm looking for a connection to the character. I'm not shooting for what would look the coolest or the cutest. I'm looking at the writing of the Lord and the dex entries and inspiration of the Pokemon to find what I think is the best match. Now, some Lords have characters that are a lot more complicated and can't be materialized by one single Pokemon. So there is for sure going to be some of these that are a complete stretch. I just ask that you're willing to roll with me. I'm also only doing main series Lords. So that means main characters who aren't Lords are going to be here, meaning people like Chris, Robin, Byleth, etc. And this is main series, so no characters like Itsuki or Alphonse. Mainly because I still haven't played Three Hopes, I have no idea what the fuck a Shez is, and at this point I'm too scared to ask. With that all set, let's hop right in with Lord number 1, Marth. The character trait of Marth's I wanted to focus on is the fact that he's not some hero who did everything by himself. Part of Marth's character is that he debunks the idea of legends like Henri, these supposed great men who did everything and anything all by themselves, and shows that they don't really exist. Fighting for a better future is a team effort. Knowing this, I wanted to give Marth a Pokemon that was part of a team to show the idea that he isn't alone. And while there are many legendaries that find themselves in a group, I decided on Cobalion. Cobalion is one of the 4 Pokemon belonging to the 3 Musketeers-themed Pokemon from Generation 5. First of all, the imagery of a musketeer fits Marth really well, in my opinion. And I chose Cobalion specifically because not only are they the leader of the Musketeers, their Pokedex entries highlight their ability to lead and rally others to their cause, such as, quote, "From the moment it's born, this Pokemon radiates the air of a leader. Its presence will calm even vicious foes." Both Marth and Cobalion are noble and just leaders. They both rally even their former enemies to their cause. They both stand up for the downtrodden and needy, and they're both blue. That last point was very important, don't you forget it. Next up, we have Alm, I'll crush those bastards Rudolph. And Alm's problem is that honestly too many Pokemon fit him. Alm is a charismatic man who comes from humble origins. He can be a bit of a brute, but his heart is always in the right place. The thing is, there are a ton of Pokemon who are a bit of a brute. I mean, fuck, the whole concept of the fighting type could almost apply to him. So I wanted to go for a fighting type that excels in teamwork, and of those, I felt Passimian from Generation 7 fit him the best. Passimians are a group of Pokemon that thrive on teamwork, with dex entries saying, quote, "They form groups of roughly 20 individuals. Their mutual bond is remarkable. They will never let down a comrade." Alm is a powerful fighter, but he isn't afraid to rely on the help of his fellow man. Similar to Marth, humility is a defining trait for him. What separates him is that he's a bit more aggressive. so the aggressive sport monkey Passimian is the perfect match for him in my opinion. Strength meeting cooperation is the key theme I'm going for here. The young priestess Celica is overflowing with both kindness and piety, and there are no shortage of Pokemon that spread love, but finding one that fits Celica's religious angle is a little tricky. Her goddess Milla is the Earth Goddess, giving wealth and food in abundance to the point that her people became lazy slobs. So something like Snorlax might be able to fit, but then I feel like that's giving Milla a Pokemon more than giving Celica one. So with that being said, I finally landed on Togekiss from Generation 4. Togekiss is a Pokemon that goes around spreading its love and blessings to lands without strife, with Dex entries saying, quote, "It shares many blessings with people who respect one another's rights and avoid needless strife." And given that Celica's journey starts with a pilgrimage to help Milla give blessings to a strife-filled land, there's a solid connection that can be drawn with Togekiss. While many Pokemon give love, Togekiss specifically is stated to only give it to those that spread peace, which fits Celica's pacifistic nature very well in my opinion. When thinking about Sigurd, I wanted to highlight both his power and his unintentional warmongering. While Sigurd is a very good man at heart, he does end up solving a lot of his problems with violence, and that fact does eventually catch up to him. In fact, developer interviews even go so far as to state that Yggdrasil's problems wouldn't have happened if Sigurd were a more competent person. So with that in mind, Kingambit from Gen 9 seemed like the perfect fit for him. Kingambit is a very powerful Pokemon. In both casual and competitive play, his stats, ability, and move pool can decimate entire teams of Pokemon single-handedly, much like how Sigurd conquers half of Yggdrasil with nothing but a silver sword and a dream. And on top of that, Kingambit's Pokedex entries highlight that, despite being a leader of armies of Bisharp, it isn't that bright, saying, quote, "Though it commands a massive army in battle, it's not skilled at devising complex strategies. It just uses brute strength to keep pushing." And a final point for Kingambit. If Sigurd had one during the Battle of Belhalla and the Yid Massacre, Kingambit's Supreme Overlord ability would have stacked so high, all he would have to do is lightly breathe on Arvis, and that would have killed him. For Seliph, he's characterized by his own insecurities and the pressures of the world around him. He wants to live up to Sigurd's shadow, but he feels he's not even half the man his father is. But over the course of the story, he eventually grows strong and capable enough to reach and even surpass Sigurd's level, and I think a pseudo-legendary is the best route to go with this. For those that don't know what that term means, pseudo-legends refer to late-game Pokemon that start out really weak, like Dratini and Gible, but will later grow into some of the most powerful Pokemon in the game. While this journey of starting weak and growing strong means that any pseudo can really work for Seliph, I decided to pick Bagon from Generation 3 specifically. Bagon, more than any others of its ilk, idolizes its most powerful form. It looks at Salamence soaring through the skies and wants nothing more than to be just like it, with entries saying, quote, "Bagon has a dream of one day soaring in the sky. In doomed efforts to fly, this Pokemon hurls itself off cliffs. As a result of its dives, its head has grown tough and as hard as tempered steel." Bagon's adoration and desire to be like Salamence can mirror Seliph's desire to be like his father. And of course, you can't forget the most important part. Seliph is blue. Bagon is blue. They are practically made for each other. Leif was actually difficult for me to think of one for, as a lot of Leif and Thrasia's story is built around Leif coming to terms with the privilege of his birth and how the people of Leonster are, at least in part, responsible for creating those big, bad, evil Thracians like Travant. There isn't exactly a systemic racism Pokemon, so I had to look elsewhere for inspiration. and I decided to focus on his Fire Emblem 4 self, with Leif's burning hatred of Thracians and Trabant to be the angle I wanted to go for. And I ended up choosing the Pokemon who's had beef with another Pokemon for over 20 years. Zangoose from Generation 3. Zangoose has been fighting Seviper since Ruby and Sapphire, with Pokedex entries saying things like, quote, "Memories of battling its arch-rival Seviper are etched into every cell of Zangoose's body. This Pokemon adroitly dodges attacks with incredible agility." That eternal hatred has manifested in Zangoose's ability being immunity to the poison status condition, and its hidden ability being Toxic Boost, an ability that makes Zangoose do more damage when he's poisoned, which is a signature ability, by the way. Zangoose hates Seviper so much, they manifested a special power that only Zangoose can learn. That is pure hatred right there. And Leif is similarly a very pissed off young man in Fire Emblem 4. What with his iconic, "I only live to choke the life out of you with my bare hands" line. And Seviper being a reptile makes him close enough of an allegory for Thracia's Dragon Riders. It's not perfect, but I think it fits well enough. Now, Roy's our boy. Quite literally, he is just a child. Him being a child is very important to his character, as his youthful, and perhaps naive faith in humanity is meant to be a contrast to the main villain Zephiel's bitter old man cynicism. So giving Roy one of the cute, youthful Pokemon seems like the perfect fit. And given that Roy has the moniker of Young Lion and an affinity with fire, you would think that the literal Fire Lion Pokemon Litleo and Pyroar would be what I'd pick. But Pyroar is a lazy herd leader that lets women do all the work while he only does anything if he has to, which doesn't fit Roy at all. Instead, I decided on Growlithe from Generation 1, as it keeps Roy's fire motif, but fits his character and personality a lot better, with Growlithe's dex entries saying things like, quote, "A Pokemon with a friendly nature. However, it will bark fiercely at anything invading its territory." This, and other entries that highlight Growlithe's loyal and kind heart, mirror how Roy did not ask for war. If left to his own devices, he would have spent carefree days with Lolina, Walt, and all the other people he loves. But when the fight came to him, he fiercely rose up to defend his weak father and the rest of his loved ones. A cute, young fire type that holds a burning resolve to protect the people it cares about is more than a perfect fit for the young lion, and much more of a fit than the actual young lion. Go figure. If there is anything that Lyn loves most of all, it is the calming presence of nature. While she does respond to her birthright as Princess of Kalen, her heart is always with the plains of Sake. So, naturally, she lends herself over to grass types very well, since the type is almost synonymous with nature. Lyn also has a wind motif, having multiple wind-based monikers, and the winds of Sake being something that Sakean characters talk about very often. So in my opinion, Jumpluff from Generation 2 seems to be the perfect fit. The entire Jumpluff line shtick is that it floats around the world on the natural seasonal winds. So for a woman like Lyn, who wants to be at peace with nature and the calm breeze of the plains, Jumpluff is a damn near perfect match, with dex entries saying things like, quote, "Blown by seasonal winds, it circles the globe, scattering cotton spores as it goes." Jumpluff's globe-trotting nature can also mesh well with Lyn being part of a nomadic people. So while Jumpluff's world traveling is a bit more than Lyn's nomad traveling, its sentiment still remains, and I think it fits Lyn really well. Eliwood is a rock. Despite all of the hardships he endures, he almost never lets his pain show, and he continues focusing on the task at hand. His determination is his strongest trait. And considering there's a Pokemon that quite literally gave human beings the power of will and determination, I'm going to go with Azelf from Generation 4 for our dear Eliwood. When his father disappeared, Eliwood went to search for him. When his father died, Eliwood went to get justice and protect the world. When Ninian died by his own hands, Eliwood soldiered on to prevent another tragedy like that from happening. At no point did his determination waver. And according to Pokémon, that's all thanks to Azelf, with Dex entries saying, quote, "This Pokémon is said to have endowed humans with the determination needed to face any of life's difficulties." And by God, does Eliwood go through difficulties constantly. So giving him the Pokémon that's the physical embodiment of him fighting those challenges seemed like the appropriate way to go. With an axe in his hand, many think of Hector as a brash, aggressive man. And while he can be both of those things, I personally believe Hector's main trait is loyalty. He'll be there for the people he loves and cares about, even if it means he's marching to his own death. There are many Pokémon known for loyalty. Heck, I just talked about Growlithe a little bit ago, but there's one that best fits Hector, and in my opinion, that's Braviary from Generation 5. Not only is this giant bird a good match to Hector's own massive stature, the Dex entries for Braviary line up with Hector very well, saying, quote, "They fight for their friends, without any thought about the danger to themselves. One can carry a car while flying." While I'm about 70% sure Hector can't lift a car, he does constantly put himself in danger to protect Eliwood, going against his brother Uther's orders and even accepting a weapon that will curse him to an early grave. Both Hector and Braviary will fight on for the people and things that they love, so I think they fit each other wonderfully. Plus, think of the image of Hector riding into battle atop a Braviary. That image just feels right to me. The next Lord on the list is me. Yeah, fun fact, I'm actually a Fire Emblem Lord. It's kinda easy to miss me. I was standing next to Hector the whole time and I kinda blended into the background. And picking a Pokemon for myself was really hard. I ultimately decided to go with Gholdengo from Generation 9, for the simple reason that I really want to make it rain with all the money I get from Patreon. That's right, I have a Patreon, where for as little as $3 a month, you can help support the channel and gain access to benefits. Going to patreon.com/FEMSPaint, link in the description, can help you get signed up in a jiffy. I would greatly appreciate if you considered helping the channel. My patrons include the likes of Adebayo Thompson, Alex Oroliga, Andrew Crockett, Bean Juice, Benz Again, Dr. McBackstab, Hell on Heelys, Ichigo D. Camus, Jaeger Guts, Kenpachi Shiro, Uzumaki, Kiri, Igbato, Kratos, Taranzel, Frederick Series, Bulsara, Hakuman, The White Void, Despacito 2, Larmachi, Lysevening Bolt, Marth War Criminal, Morgalorgan, Plaid Arrow, Plaid is pronounced like the pattern, Ranger Man Sam, Shen Lu, the world's most unironic 8.5 tail stand, Veery the Artist, Walmart Greeter, Your Girl Owen, Brentendo 11, Drew Hack, Fire Emblem Lord, Ginger, Gugu Gaga, Cornelia Milkers 92, Lev Maverick, Maple Knight, and Upscale Furry Trash. Thank you all for your continued support, and let's get right back to the next Lord. Eirika and Ephraim are the ones I really could have been a lazy bitch on. Their game is called Sacred Stones, they have a very strong moon and sun motif, so boom, Lunatone and Solrock. Ship it, send it, easy money. But I'm not going to take the easy route. So going at them individually, Eirika's personality is that of a naive woman who gets hit with cruel reality and understands that kindness has a cost and you can't always be kind. That's a little bit much for one single Pokemon to embody the idea of, but I ultimately landed on Chansey from Generation 1. Like I said with Celica, there are no shortage of Pokemon that love to help people. And Chansey has a lot of Dex entries about how its eggs are used to help deliver happiness and love to injured people, much like how Eirika wants to spread love and stop the war on her nation. But Chansey specifically has a Dex entry that I think ties them to Eirika really well, saying, quote, "It lays several eggs a day, and won't share them with those who have evil in their hearts." The fact that Chansey doesn't blindly heal people and understands that some people cannot be given its love mirrors Eirika's own character arc of learning that there are some people in this world who kindness can never reach. She has to understand when to love and when to fight, much like how Chansey has to understand when to love and when to run. Though, honestly, now I'm left to wonder, would giving Leon a Chansey egg have fixed all of that crap? Like, what's the over-under on that? Could he have been saved by a nice, delicious omelet? While Eirika is kindness that needed to learn when to be aggressive, Ephraim is aggression that needed to learn when to be kind. He thinks all of his problems can be solved by stabbing them, and so I'm looking for a Pokemon that has a violent disposition, but a kind heart underneath it. So after thinking on it for the long time of 20 seconds, I made my decision. And look away, Wolfie VGC, because I'm giving Ephraim Incineroar from Generation 7. Incineroar loves the thrill of fighting strong opponents, much like Ephraim. He's also a fire type, which fits well with Ephraim's sun motif. And Incineroar is also shown to have a soft side, with Dex entries saying, quote, Incineroar's rough and aggressive behavior is its most notable trait, but the way it helps out small Pokemon shows that it has a kind side as well. This matches up with the fact that Ephraim does show love and kindness to the people he cares about, like Eirika and Kyle. A Pokemon all about fighting is just the thing for Ephraim. Plus, I also really like Incineroar, so there's some bias there. Look, if I really wanted to be biased, I would give every Lord a Dracovish or a Snorlax. You're lucky it's not happening more than it is. Ike's character in Path of Radiance can be looked at in a few ways. I can go for Pokemon that have a strong sense of love and community, to mirror how important the Grail Mercenaries are to Ike's character and the idea of found family. I could also go for the idea that Ike is a stoic young man who takes in the world around him one step at a time, going with a Pokemon that travels the world and have that mirror Ike's own journey. I'm gonna opt with the former though, and go for a Pokemon that perfectly exemplifies found family. Maushold from Generation 9. Now, I know the image of a big burly Ike getting a family of silly little rats sounds silly, and it is, but hear me out with this Dex entry. Quote, the two little ones just appeared one day. The group might be a family of related Pokemon, but nobody knows for sure. Maushold is not a blood-related family. They're just mice who found each other. The Grail Mercenaries are very important to Ike, perhaps the single most important thing to him. His family is his blood-related sister, Mist, sure, but it's also his mother figure, Titania, and his big brother figure, Boyd, and his racist uncle figure, Shannon, and so on and so forth. Maushold being a literal found family is a perfect parallel to Ike's family. And just like Ike fights for his friends, Maushold commits acts of domestic terrorism known as 10-hit population bomb for its friends. It's a match made in heaven. Radiant Dawn's Micaiah is a fun one to find an angle for. I could go for one of her healing abilities, and give her a Pokemon that heals allies like Poltergeist. I could go for her branded side, and give her a Pokemon relating to her true heritage as a half-Heron Lagoose. There's no Heron Pokemon, but like, Swana's kinda close. But in the end, I decided to go with choosing a Pokemon based on Micaiah's goal of liberating Dayan. And when I think of liberation, I'm going to go with Zekrom from Generation 5. Its Pokedex entries state, quote, this legendary Pokemon can scorch the world with lightning. It assists those who want to build an ideal world. So, Zekrom coming in to help Micaiah save Dayan from oppression and making it an ideal world where Dayan can be free is completely in character. Hell, Micaiah literally gets saved by a giant black dragon in the story of Radiant Dawn already. Plus, Zekrom makes lightning. And lightning is kinda like light magic, right? Ignore how there's literally thunder magic in Radiant Dawn that Micaiah can't wield. I'm trying to push an agenda here. And hell, in the story of Pokemon, and was trying to use the power of Zekrom to liberate Pokemon. So I think this one's a really solid pick. Ladies, gents, others, it's time for Chrom. And his character is all about the power of friendship, baby. That's right, the power of love can conquer anything and everything. The power of friendship is kind of like the central theme of the entire Pokemon franchise, so I honest to God feel like Chrom could be a trainer to any Pokemon and it would work. But as for Pokemon specifically about friendship and teamwork, I feel like Falinks from Gen 8 is the best option. Falinks is literally all about pairing up to make itself stronger, with Dex entries saying, quote, "The 6 of them work together as one Pokemon. Teamwork is also their battle strategy, and they constantly change their formations as they fight." Chrom commanding a Pokemon that literally can't function without their bonds, both literally and metaphorically, is the perfect way to encapsulate his feelings that our bonds are our greatest strength. But it also makes me think about how fucking broken a unit in Awakening could be if they could pair up with 6 people like Falinks. Awakening's already easy enough to break, but imagine if you could have a unit that gets about plus 15 to every stat and can choose between 6 different units to fight with. That would be ungodly broken, but more importantly, it would be ungodly cool. Lucina is the easiest to do in theory. The main thing about her is she's a time traveler, so any Pokemon that travels through time sounds like the natural fit. I was originally thinking of Grovyle due to Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, but Lucina doesn't really mesh with Grovyle, she just meshes with that one Grovyle specifically. That leaves me with looking at Pokemon that naturally have some affinity in time. Pokemon like Celebi and Dialga seem like decent picks, but they both have problems. Celebi travels from the future, but very specifically only travels to times of peace. And given that Lucina travels with a sword and a desire to kill, that doesn't really work. Dialga's the Lord of Time and can travel through it, but it doesn't really seem to do anything once it's there. At least, not in Dex entries. So that leaves me looking at Pokemon that can see the future more so than travel from it, like Xatu, for example. And of those, Gardevoir is the best pick in my opinion, because of Dex entries like, quote, "Gardevoir has the ability to read the future. If it senses impending danger to its trainer, this Pokemon is said to unleash its psychokinetic energy at full power." Lucina perfectly matches up with the Pokemon who will do anything to save its loved ones from a bad future. And while Lucina stabbing things to death isn't quite a display of psychic power, it's close enough that I feel comfortable giving Gardevoir the nod. While there are 3 routes in Fire Emblem Fates, Corrin themselves is a similar enough character regardless of if they're going on a Fire Emblem Fates conquest, accepting their Fire Emblem Fates birthright, or having a Fire Emblem Fates revelation. Corrin seeks peace and understanding more than anything, never wanting to be violent unless Hans is involved, so a peaceful Pokemon like what Celica and Eirika have is the way to go in my opinion. And given that Corrin is a dragon, I decided to go with the kind dragon, Dragonite from Generation 1. Dragonite is a dragon that protects people in shipwrecks, with Dex entry saying, quote, "It's a kind-hearted Pokemon. If it spots a drowning person or Pokemon, Dragonite simply must help them." The thing is, Dragonite also has a strong connection to water and the ocean, and Corrin also has a very strong water motif. Though how much of that is Corrin and how much of that is bleed over from Azura is up for debate. But Corrin having a Pokemon that's about saving people is perfect for them. Plus, Dragonite's large visage can fit Corrin's own dragon form for the moments Corrin has to go on the offensive. They're very sweet at heart, but not afraid to put the pedal to the metal when they need to. Now it's time for the 3 Houses Lords, and Edelgard is actually one of the ones that made me want to do this video. Edelgard wants political reform. She seeks to change the world by questioning the authority of the church and instilling a new order that's more fair to the people. And while that's all well and good, Last I checked, Martin Luther isn't a Pokemon, so I'll have to approach Edelgard from a different angle. And the angle I want to look at is going to give her Absol from Generation 3. Absol is known as the Disaster Pokemon, and they are hated by the people of the world because every time Absol shows up, a calamity happens, so people blame it on Absol. But the thing is, they're misunderstanding the cause and effect. Calamity doesn't strike because Absol is coming because Calamity is going to strike. Absol just wants to warn people of the disaster, and it gets hated and ridiculed for it, with Dex entries saying, quote, "It appears when it senses an impending natural disaster. As a result, it was mistaken as a doombringer." I feel like this idea syncs up with Edelgard very well. She is not to blame for the disasters that strike Fodlan, but she is constantly berated as a warmonger simply for being the one who tries to do something about it. Absol and Edelgard can bond together over their unfair treatment by the world at large, and I think that's as good a reason as any for my pick. Now for the next Three Houses Lord that went through too much shit, Dimitri. I knew from the get-go that I wanted him to be paired with a ghost type, as feeling chained down by the failed dreams of the dead is a big part of who he is. And while there are no shortage of ghost types with a grudge to hold down the living, I think I have the one that I like the most, Alolan Marowak from Generation 7. Alolan Marowak uses the spirit of its dead mother as a weapon, with Dex entries saying, quote, "The bones it possesses were once its mother's. Its mother's regrets have become like a vengeful spirit protecting this Pokemon." This relates to Dimitri both before and after he comes to his senses during the war phase. Dimitri believes the spirits of the dead are clinging to him, with anger and remorse, much like the vengeful spirit of Marowak. But the wishes of the dead are not always a debt unpaid. As while the spirit is vengeful, the Dex entry specifies that it's like a vengeful spirit, but really it's just protecting Marowak, linking up with the idea that Dimitri eventually learns the dead aren't just trying to rag you down, but instead, your loved ones are watching over you and want you to be safe. Honoring and mourning the dead is an important part of Alolan Marowak, just as it is for Dimitri, and the two of them have a kinship in what it means to honor the departed, making it a natural pick for his Pokemon. And last but not least for the Three Houses Lords, Claude was a little tricky for me to nail down. His main trait is that he's clever, and at times, devious. He's not afraid of doing what needs to be done, no matter how dirty his hands may get. The problem is devious often coincides with evil, and that doesn't apply to Claude at all. But at the same time, giving him a Pokemon that's just a silly prankster like Rotom feels like I'm selling Claude a little short. I ultimately decided to go with Zoroark from Generation 5. He's a master of illusions, thus giving into Claude's idea of using trickery and cunning. Zoroark is also a good Pokemon at heart, despite being built on the powers of lying and deception, with Dex entries saying, quote, "Bonds between these Pokemon are very strong. It protects the safety of its pack by tricking up its opponents." Much like how Claude's lies and cheats are done to protect the people he holds dear, Zoroark deceives its opponents to protect its pack. They both use quote-unquote evil tactics to do the right thing, and this perfectly fits a Pokemon for the future king of Elmira. And to round out the video, we have Alear, the divine dragon who's worshipped by all. Alear's character wants to tell a story of found family and what it means to protect what you hold dear. So while I could just give them the god Pokemon Arceus because they're also a god, that doesn't quite fit who Alear is. I could also give Alear Kamala, because Alear slept for centuries, and I'm pretty sure Kamala would too if it could physically live that long. Honestly, there isn't a perfect match for Alear I can think of. The closest I could get are the Island Guardians from Generation 7. Like Alear, all four of them are revered as deities to the people they watch over. but the reality doesn't match the legend. But in Alear's case, it's that they're believed to be a great god, but in reality, they're just kind of nice people. The Guardian Pokémon, meanwhile, are all revered as protectors, but they're just as likely to destroy as they are to protect. It admittedly isn't a perfect one-to-one, but it's the best I could think of. And because I have to pick one Guardian specifically, I'm gonna go with Tapu Fini, because its dex entry is the least violent of the four, saying, quote, "Although it's called a guardian deity, terrible calamities sometimes befall those who recklessly approach Tapu Fini." I know that doesn't sound like it's the least violent, but the others are way more prone to anger and cruelty, so just trust me on this one. Alear is definitely the biggest stretch here. I'm certain someone in the comments probably has a better idea, and I honestly would love to hear it. Because I'm certain that not just for Alear, but for everyone here, there were some Pokemon you thought were a little bit too much of a stretch, or maybe for some lords I was focusing on one character trait of theirs, while you think of a Pokemon that matches another character trait. And honestly, that's completely fine. There are so many possible combinations that I genuinely think no one person is going to have the same pair for every lord. So please, let me know what you think. I love Pokemon and I love Fire Emblem, so I would love to see what every one of you thinks about the choices I made. Do you agree with them? Do you think some of them are too much of a stretch? Or do you not even have any opinion on the matter and just want to say hello? I welcome every comment, and I thank you guys very much for watching. Take care.